Good morning and welcome to Real Estate Know-How with Lynaae. I am here representing Forbes Realty Group. We've now been open as of the end of January, and I am the broker owner. And I'm just excited to be able to bring a show to help people understand some of the intricacies of real estate. Today, we're going to be talking about title and escrow. And I have a guest here today from Harmony Title, and Carrie St. Jacques.
St. Jacques.
St. Jacques. I love that. Like Jacques
Cousteau.
You're at fault for that. So I'm pointing to the husband off screen. But anyway, so I want to do is the introduction today is we're going to talk a little bit about Harmony Title. They have just moved into our market on a full-time basis. As a matter of fact, they're opening offices. So why don't you were telling me a little bit about that. I wanted to talk about Harmony Title today. So give me a little background on them.
Harmony Title is owned by Rand and Terry Johnson. They have been in the real estate market for with everyone's background, probably over 50 years. Rand started Trustee Corp, which was based out of California. We're a preferred closer for Fannie and Freddie. They opened Harmony Title Agency here in Las Vegas, Nevada in 2011. We were doing some of the closings and whatnot out of our California office until we got everything up and running here.
Kiss the mic.
Since then, we have a full title and escrow company here in Las Vegas. We're on Red Rock Street.
What's your zip code? Nope. Gosh, I have to throw that one into you.
Right?
I hear keywords, and a lot of our audience might not understand this. When we talk about Freddie and Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac,
Fannie Mae.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's those government
entities that
now being run by the government.
Right, exactly. But when all the foreclosures came into effect, Fannie and Freddie, of course, had a large inventory, not just in California, not in Nevada. They were clear across the United States. And they chose closers that they would have foreclosed on the properties. Then once they called them assets, once they closed, once the real estate agents closed those, we would do the title on those and the escrow.
Okay.
And that's how we came in with Fannie and Freddie.
All right. Well, and then I want to go in a little bit to your background. Okay. You said you started when you were 19 as a receptionist. And believe me, when I say that, there's so much respect that goes to the receptionist. Often we forget that the receptionist at any business is the gatekeeper to our people. And often they get mistreated, underpaid, and no respect for what they do. Mm-hmm. And so I think, always starting at what I call ground level is really important, because I bet you treat the receptionist different than probably someone who's never been a receptionist.
Oh, definitely. I started when I was 19. I had no idea what escrow was at that point, and answered an ad for a receptionist. Okay, I can answer phones, and escrow is crazy.
Yeah.
And from there, I worked for a broker-owned company, and from there I went to Investors Title in California, which was underwritten by First American.
How long were you with them?
I was with them for about 12 years.
Okay, so you've had a lot of in-depth training, I bet.
Yes.
So were you ever an escrow officer?
Yes. I was. From there, I worked with a lady that did everything from bulk sales, commercial, exchanges, builder sales, and she took me under her wing and taught me how to do escrows. And it's pretty amazing, because a lot of times you don't have individuals, escrow officers, that know all the different types of escrows, how to handle them. And
so did you start out as an assistant before you got
started out as an assistant with her.
Okay.
And
Well, and part of the experience I bring to my own clients as well is that for 5 years I was what they considered a notary signing agent, and then I got contracted by Nevada Title, Fidelity, First American, Stewart Title. They would contract and bring me in-house, and I would sit in their offices and do signings at the height of the market, lots of refis. I even did new builders. But one of the pluses that came from that is that I learned how to put together a HUD settlement statement. And we'll touch on that later, because no longer are agents allowed to explain those. But at this time, that was something that even now agents don't even know how to read them. And if they can't explain them, that's fine, but they still need to know how to read them.
Yes.
But that was the advantage. Plus I learned how to do, get payoffs from lenders and payoffs from HOAs and sewer and trash, and pull get the order in for pulling the title report. Now, California is what we call a closed state for their title, whereas Nevada is an open state. So like as an agent, I can go online and actually see if there's liens, if they've been properly executed. Now, the title company can't depend on that.
No.
Okay.
No, you have to do your own research.
Right. So like you guys have us do and it's another acronym, SI, Statement of Information, for every person in the transaction, be it the purchaser, the buyer, or someone who's signing off like a husband or a spouse.
Right.
Okay. So they'll take us to where you are now, because you did the receptionist, you did the escrow assistant, you were the escrow officer.
Yes.
Gosh, too bad every agent isn't required to be an escrow assistant. Do you think we would have a lot better agents out there if we did that?
Oh, definitely. I went from there. I went to an independent escrow company, and from there I've been with Rand and Terry with Harmony Escrow in Irvine, California
Since '07.
since '07.
And you're now a representative for the title company.
Yes, I go between both states.
Okay.
I rep for both California and Nevada. And I've been behind a desk. I have to say this because I was behind a desk for so many years working with agents and lenders and whatnot. And when Terry and Rand gave me this opportunity to come out and be a rep for the company, I was ecstatic because I was thinking, I get to go talk to all these people that I've sat behind a desk for years with and only talk to them on the phone. Now I get to go meet them. And a lot of questions I get asked when I first go out is, do you know the business, or are you just out there selling? Because you get a lot of reps out there that
never
they hire,
done anything,
and they've never been in the real estate industry. They don't know anything. And I go, no, I know the business, and call me anytime.
Yeah.
Anytime you have a question, call me, night or day, and I can answer that question.
And I think that's probably why you and I are attracted to each other in a sense, is because there's a bond that happens when, I go get my nails done, and the nail artist and the massage therapist has to get like 1,500 hours of study in, and me to get my real estate license just as a newbie, 90 hours. Are you kidding me?
Yes.
And then
you got the continuing education.
And then you just throw me out there, and I've got no background. So if I didn't come from the lending and the title industry, I'm really basically swimming with no knowledge.
And you get a lot of agents that are like that. They don't have a clue, and they're going to look to your escrow and your title to help them, to hold their hand and teach them what they have to do, because they don't know. It's like, we'll go, okay, where's our inspection report? Where's our termite? Where's our home warranty? Oh, I have to get all that stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, especially if it's in the offer. Okay. Yes. And I know California runs a little bit differently, because I did do a California closing recently, and really the escrow officer took pretty much control of everything. So if I didn't have a pest inspection person, she actually had a list for me, which was incredible, because here in Las Vegas, that ain't happening.
Right.
If I'm going to get a pest inspection list, I have to get it from my lender, because usually it's a lender required thing, not a state required, because California's different. So I'm sure that taking on and off those hats, California's got a lot more rules than we do, but it's probably better that, if it's going to be looser, it's going to be looser on this side of the state line. Okay. So I just want to let everybody know today, if you're listening live, our call-in number is 702-483-4444. Real Estate Know-How with Lynaae. And my website is ForbesRealtyGroup.com, and our email address is ForbesRealtyGroupNV@gmail.com. And today we have Harmony Title, and our guest is Carrie St. Jacques. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Woo! Yes, I'm getting good. Woo-hoo. And we'll be back after this break. And good morning. Welcome back to Real Estate Know-How with Lynaae. And today in our studio is a guest from Harmony Title, Carrie St. Jacques. And I want to welcome you. You're traveling back and forth between here and California, so thank you so much for keeping our
You're welcome.
our time. So we're going to talk a little bit next about what is title insurance. You know, how many have you bought a home and had title insurance and never really asked the question, why am I paying for this? And this is a service that you'll see on the escrow settlement statement. There's two fees. One, if the escrow itself. So we've got the escrow company and then the title company. So the escrow fee is the handling of all the intricate documents, getting payoffs, getting deeds of trust, getting deeds signed, etc. And then there's the title, and that's called title insurance. We've got the owner's policy of title, and if you're getting a loan on your property, be it a hard money lender or traditional FHA, conventional VA, then we have what we call the lender's policy of coverage. So today we're going to dig in a little bit and find out what is it that you're paying for when you get title insurance.
Well, title insurance, I always tell buyers when they're signing their loan docs, title insurance is just that, insurance. It's protecting your property that you've just bought, that there's no liens or encumbrances on record other than your new first trust deed. Your property taxes are paid current. Your HOA is up to date. There's no, if SIDS and LIDs have been paid, those are not going to show on there. They're outstanding. Your sewer and trash bills are paid.
And what about mechanics liens? Because, one of the things that as a real estate agent I learned when I was going through the class is that sometimes let's just name somebody. The guy that did the flooring in my home, and he dropped off the materials before he started the job. And then I didn't pay him, so he went and got a judgment. This didn't really happen. I'm just doing a story. Then he goes and gets a judgment, and the judgment says, okay, now I can lien the property. And he fails to lien the property before closing, but comes back later and liens it. How does something like that work? And am I throwing you a...
Well, no. I mean, if he didn't lien it, he's only got so many days to lien the property after the work has been completed, or he's dropped off materials or whatever, and he hasn't been paid. He only has a window time period to lien that property. If that company does not lien the property, he can't do anything. But also, that mechanics lien has to be paid. If title is transferred, it's got to be paid at the close of escrow if it hasn't already been paid. A lot of times they will pay, but they don't release them.
Right. Okay. So it's up to the person who's filing the mechanics lien to ensure that they file it in a timely manner, and especially while the person who is due the paying the bill is still owns the property.
Correct.
Okay, so that's the whole point of the lien.
Right.
Okay, so that pops up, and one of the things that I saw in escrow was those hot water or those water softening things.
Yes.
And I had one that popped up like 20 years back, and the lady's like, she's passed. The heirs are handling the estate. This pops up, and we can't find that company.
They know nothing about it.
We can't even find the company because we're pretty much sure that they got paid off, especially if it was liened 20 years ago. Is there a special system or a set of things that you guys can do to help a buyer and the seller get through the process?
Well, we'll try to see if we can't find somebody, maybe, somebody a past owner that maybe knows that it's been paid off and they have something to show. We need some type of receipt showing it's been paid off. Other than that, the only thing you can do is get a bond.
Okay.
And write around the bond. And those can get kind of pricey. We don't like to do them. That's our,
Well,
last
I saw one time where, in a situation that I was mentioning here, we actually had an exception done, and everybody signed off of it because we couldn't find this company 20 years later, and there was no record that they were still in business. And of course, then when things were recorded, we didn't get people's names and phone numbers and addresses, and that address, of course, like 3 times changed with the business. So we really couldn't find them. So in a case like that, a buyer and seller should feel secure enough to sign off an indemnity clause.
Yes.
Is that what that
we do?
would
An
call?
amendment indemnifying all parties.
Okay.
And that is, we protect the buyer, the seller, the agents, the lender, title company, everyone, that if this lien comes back, that's going to be the seller's responsibility to cure that and take care of that.
And is that a document that gets recorded, like here in Nevada? Would that be recorded so that the next title company could find it? So if it
Not typically, we don't record those.
Okay.
Those are done through the escrow portion of it.
Okay.
But you can record it. You can record any document you want.
Okay.
In essence.
that would be ideal in a situation, especially if it's that old, because I've seen that happen as well, too. Okay, well, that's interesting. And so what we're talking about is title insurance is protecting your purchase of a new property, you the buyer. So it's your policy, just like you would go out and buy a property insurance policy to protect your home from, be it the flood, earthquakes, etc., damages. I had a client
and it
that
defines your easements on the property. It defines your property taxes, that those are current, that they're not outstanding. So I tell buyers, when you get that title policy, it looks really boring, but you need to hang on to that. Because that's a very important document.
And then if you're getting financing, the other one that I see that shows up is the lender's policy of title. Now, that does not protect the buyer. That protects
the lender.
Okay.
That protects the lender in the position that they are requesting on their loan documents,
So-
whether it be first, second, third.
Okay. So, and would this apply when we do subordinations?
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
the subordinating,
Lender, it'll put them in the position that they're requesting. So if there's a subordination, we're going to prepare that subordination agreement, and we're going to file that along with the new deed of trust.
well, what's been very interesting is one of the things that I've looked up is that in 1974 there was a law written, it's in RESPA, that requires that title policy be picked by the buyer. However, we've often seen in our market that doesn't happen.
No.
And, so I find it interesting that we've got listing agents who say it's a seller's choice, but I think it's not really about the title, but about the escrow
Right.
agent.
Yes. Well, if you don't have a good escrow agent working with you, it can be very stressful for all parties involved. You need to have somebody that's knowledgeable with what they're doing and is a disinterested third party. They're there to collect the documents, the monies, set it up for recording and disbursement of the funds.
Let's talk about that disinterested third party, because I find that interesting. A lot of people are not trusting. Well, if you pick the escrow officer, how do you know that escrow officer is really not taking sides?
We can't.
You're not supposed to.
We are not allowed to. We have to. We have everyone's best interest at heart. If the lender wants a certain thing and we can't do it, we have to say, no, it's not going to happen. We cannot accommodate you on that request. Same with the buyer, same with the seller.
Okay, and I know in California it's a little bit stricter because they, rules there that the pest inspections and all that comes to the title company, whereas here we don't see that. So that's kind of an interesting change. So I think that brings us into TRID a little bit, and leave it to the government to give us an acronym for an acronym. TRID is the Truth in Lending and RESPA Integrated Disclosure, and that took effect October 3rd of this last year. And basically what my understanding of that whole thing is that no more surprises at closing. Okay, how often do you in the past did you get to the closing of buying a house and you were told, hey, you only need to bring in $10,000, and the next thing you know, you have to bring in 12. And maybe that $2,000 doesn't seem like a lot, but to somebody who's buying a home, all of a sudden that can be overwhelming. Even $500 can be a problem.
Yes.
So I think the whole purpose of TRID was to prevent that surprise at the end. So now what we're seeing is no longer is title actually producing the settlement statement. It is the lender required department to do that. Am I correct?
Correct. Lender is now responsible for the closing disclosure, but they don't want to prepare it because escrow's always been the one that's prepared it. They give us the figures, we get our figures, we get titles figures, we get everyone's figures, what their homeowner's insurance is, what
Their SIDS.
property taxes are, their SIDS, their LIDs, HOA, what the transfer fees and prorations and whatnot. Now lender is required to do that, and they don't know how to do it because they've always looked to escrow to prepare that for them. And we're coming across it where now we've got some lenders that are saying, well, if you don't prepare it, then we're not doing business with you, and we're kind of put on the blacklist. You know?
Oh.
Yeah.
But the thing is that ultimately whoever prepares that HUD is going to be ultimately responsible for missed fees,
Yes, and that's why they want escrow to handle it, because then guess who has to pay if it's wrong?
Right.
Not the lender, escrow.
Uh-huh.
And we don't have a problem. We still work with a lot of lenders, with the HUD. If they've got something wrong, we'll go back and, no, that goes over here, that goes over here. We're putting our hands up and we're not helping you at all.
No, that's not what you're saying. You're just saying that you can't be
By
the
law.
preparer
Yeah.
of it by law.
By law, we
by
cannot.
TRID rules. And I also find that interesting too, because one of the things that I learned in some of the classes that I've taken is that real estate agents are no longer allowed to explain the settlement statement.
Right.
Okay? And it's a 5-page document now, correct?
The HUD,
And
yes.
yeah, and I call it a settlement statement because that it used to be a HUD, but it doesn't. I
Right.
think it's changed again.
right.
So settlement, everybody knows kind of like what that means. Okay, we're settling at closing. But I find it interesting. I think that we're going to see some fallout from this, but even though we haven't seen it affect our closings as much as we thought, but it still has now. I thought I was amazed is that my buyer came in and signed, and it funded the same day that they signed, because they had gotten their documents 3 days before for review that they didn't sign.
Right. Right. They have to have at least 3 days. to
And we
review
talk about 3
before
business
closing.
days.
Yes.
So that's not the holidays. And the way I do business days is any day the post office doesn't deliver mail.
Right.
So
Right.
yesterday was a federal holiday and there was no mail delivered, and Sundays no mail delivered. So Saturday is counted.
Right.
Okay. So yeah, we got to keep that in mind. What are
And
the
you
days?
got to remember too, if the lender is mailing out those documents, they have to mail them out in essence 7 days before closing, because they have to get those the 3 days before.
Right. And
So
so
they've gotta
now,
allow for
well,
mail.
the lovely thing about email, but does is it requiring the buyer then, once they receive them, to send an email that they acknowledge that they received them, or is there how do we know if they've gotten them?
Not that I've heard of, not that I'm aware of. But typically they have to have those documents, because an email, you're going to see when you get those. Those are dated also, when you
Right.
get them, what time you get them. So if it ever went back, they could look at them and say, those documents were delivered to you on such and such date. Now, I don't know how that's going to affect when they open that document, because people typically don't open their emails on the same, day that they get them.
I know I've got clients where I actually text them that I'm emailing them
Yeah.
because I want you to go into your email.
Yeah.
My email is open 24/7, I swear. But
Yes.
those of us that our clients, they actually have a work day, and they're not opening their email during their work day.
Exactly.
Okay, so yeah, they're not going to get that. So yeah, that's an interesting thing that we're this TRID and all that. So, and then in our next segment, we're going to talk a little bit about how TRID's affecting listing agents and buying agents in the real estate realm, and how that could actually benefit the buyer to what kind of I'm missing the word that I need to come back to, but when we get back to the third segment, we'll talk a little bit about that today, and then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the what's a cloud on title, and a couple of good stories that Carrie's got for us that I think are great, because anytime we put a story with something, it like helps people put it in play. Everybody knows what a car insurance is. Everybody knows what house insurance is. But title insurance has been something that's been truly lacking, even in our industry. And today, my goal is to help you as a buyer understand what you are getting with a policy. And it doesn't matter who pays for it. It's your policy. If the seller says they're paying for it, that's fine. It's still your policy, because when they move and when they leave the house and they give you the keys, it's your house. It's your policy. So today, we're Real Estate Know-How with Lynaae. Our guest today is Harmony Title with Carrie St. Jacques, and we'll be back in a few moments. And good morning and welcome back to Real Estate Know-How with Lynaae. Forbes Realty Group. I am with Forbes Realty Group. I'm the broker owner, and today our guest is Harmony Title with Carrie St. Jacques. And what we've been talking about a little bit today is, or a lot, our whole subject is why title insurance is important, why you should understand what you're getting with this type of policy, and how often the real estate agents are picking those policies on your behalf and you have no idea what you're getting. So we were talking a little bit this morning at coffee about the cloud on title. Now, I brought up something about, the old, water softener from 20 years ago, but you gave us a really interesting story, and we're just going to call it the bank. We're not going to name the bank on this, but I wanted you to talk about that and kind of give us a little background on it, and then kind of what you had to do. And I know you did a document, and we talked about that. So the floor is yours.
We had a transaction. It came to us as a purchase. It was an investor that had bought the property from the bank on an REO closing.
An REO means real estate owned by a non-entity, be it the bank, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, the FHA. I just like to let everybody know those little acronyms.
I went into a real estate office one day, and there was an attorney that was in there, and he was talking to me and telling me how we had a transaction that they were trying to find this certain person, and do you know anybody? And so I said, well, what's the scenario? So he proceeded to tell me that this person had signed back when the property was sold as an REO property from the bank. He signed on behalf of the bank, selling the property to this investor.
So this individual thought he had the power to represent the bank, but we were finding out later that he did not?
Correct.
Okay.
And he did this to numerous properties. This was not the only one he did.
Okay.
But so therefore it created a cloud on title, because he did not have the authority to sign on behalf of the bank.
Okay.
So this seller was selling to a buyer that was a cash transaction, but we had the cloud on title. So I said to the attorney, I said, well, let me get the information, let me see what I can find. Because with me being an escrow, to me, that's like private detective work. I like doing that kind of stuff.
I know, I've done the same thing. When I was doing reverse mortgages, we would have that, and I actually found one of the lien holders by phone number. So anyway.
Yeah. So I said, well, let me see if I can find him, what's happened and whatnot. So I called my title officer and I said, hey, I've got this scenario, and proceeded to tell her the whole situation. And she says, well, let me check into it and see. So in the meantime, I'm driving around trying to do my little private detective on it. We found out that this individual did, in fact, he was prosecuted and went to jail for this. So I said to my title officer, I said, well, how do I get this off of title then? She goes, well, there's a problem. She says, he was prosecuted and he's in jail. I said, well, okay, let's go to jail. Because the problem was he never admitted fault.
Right.
He was prosecuted, but he never admitted that he
wasn't entitled to do that.
Yes. So I said, well, let's go to the jail and get him to admit fault and sign up. And she says, well, that would be easy enough, but he's deceased.
So the guy has passed on now, and so now we really have a cloud issue.
Right. So I said to her, I said, now
individual.
what do I do?
Yeah.
How do I fix this now? And she said, well, you need to go, the seller needs to go in front of the judge and plead his case, and the judge is the one that rules on it. And if the judge rules on it, then that removes the cloud from title.
So if the judge would say, okay, he was guilty of this, and and he's dead, so we're going to admit it for him,
yes,
and we're going to then make it part of the record.
Yes.
Okay, so
then
we're going to do two scenarios. So what happens if the judge doesn't rule on the behalf of the seller?
The cloud stays on title.
Okay, so then what do you do? This is a cash purchaser, so
right. So we took it back to the buyer and the seller. We told them what happened, what to do, and the buyer decided that he wanted to buy it anyway,
Okay.
with the cloud on it, and he was going to take care of going to the courts and, going in front of the judge and getting it removed. So I said, that's fine, it's a cash deal. We'll do that, but we're going to indemnify everyone. So we indemnified.
Now, what does indemnify mean?
Means we're going to, what word am I looking for? We're going to protect the buyer, the seller, well, not so much the buyer, but the agents, everyone involved. We're going to take them out of the equation.
And just leave it to the buyer.
And just leave it to the buyer. So the buyer is taking this property subject to this cloud on title.
Right.
And they're going to take care of it after the close of escrow.
Okay, so now we've taken the liability off of the seller. We've taken it off of the buying agent, the selling agent, the escrow
title.
company, the title company, because now he's indemnified it and said, I will run with the ball.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. He has taken it and we closed it, but we did an amendment through the escrow relieving everyone of
Okay.
any liability on that transaction.
Okay. Now, and then if this had happened, of course, the good thing would have been is that the seller gotten the judgment and the judge would have said, not a problem, then you wouldn't have had to do all that.
Right.
Okay.
But if there was a loan on it, we would never have been able to do that.
Aha.
Because the lender would have went behind that cloud.
And the lender's not
And the
willing to
lender's
do
not
that.
going to go behind a cloud.
No,
You
they're
know?
not going to do
They
that.
want clear property.
Okay. So interesting how we have to find. I actually, when you talk about being a detective, it really helped when I was a processor for mortgages. And I found a house that had a lender that was a private money lender that didn't want to be found because he was in trouble. But I found him when I told him, I said, I have this money. Do you remember that you did? And the guy actually stepped forward and gave us a payoff. And it was amazing. It was all because I was able to link a phone number and a name.
Yes.
And the internet is an amazing tool.
It really is. And if you can go back in the chain of title, you can find a lot of things too.
And that's how I found it, is that we were through the title and I found this lady's name. And then I found this lady's name and for some reason, it was connected to this guy. And then I got the phone number and I did a reverse phone search.
Yep.
And then got on the phone with them.
Yeah, it's amazing. You can do a lot of research, not only on the internet, but on a lot of recorded documents. You can go on and you can look, and down in the fine print, there may be a name or information. Don't just look at that bold print on those documents, because that small print always can give you a lot of information.
So, yeah, and I just always find it amazing because a lot of people would just write that off. And they were just like, okay, we can't sell the property. What does the seller do then at that point? The seller's got a dead person who did an illegal act or an
Yes.
unauthorized act in this case.
Yes.
And you're just sitting there with your what?
No, and I'm always the one, I can figure this out. I'm going to do this. I'm going to, work
Well,
it out. Because I always put myself in the buyer and the seller's shoes. And I've had instances where they've called and said, are we closing today? And I'm like, well, we're not funded yet. We only got 10 minutes for recording, And I'm always calling the lender, calling, whoever I need to call to get things done so I can get this done for the buyer. Because, my buyer's sitting out front in their U-Haul truck and they have nowhere to stay and they don't have any money and they've got 3 kids. And if that was me, I would want somebody to go that extra mile for me.
But now with TRID, are we seeing a lot less of this?
Oh, yeah, you have to, because you've got that 3 days.
Because now we're not, first of all, if you haven't got that document 3 days before we're actually signing and funding,
You're not closing.
we know we're not closing.
Yes, yes.
That's funny. Okay.
And it's supposed to protect the buyer, and it does protect the buyer, but at the same time, it delays closings. We can't close like we used to be able to close.
I don't see that it delayed anything. What I've been amazed is how fast and
well, as long as they're getting the documents to them. But
Yeah.
if they haven't signed them,
but they're walking into title and escrow and signing that day, and then they fund the same day. That's what I've been amazed by, because in the past that never happened.
no, we did it. When
Well-
our REOs, we were closing same day if we had clear title.
Yeah, well-
and there's no HOA and it was an investor with cash. We're closing.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about the lender's
Yeah.
side of this things, that I've never seen them sign, and what they always called it table funding. Well, that term's probably out the door now.
Right. There's no more table fundings.
Okay.
They can't do that.
All right, because the table funding was in the past, we would go in, sign the documents, and the same day they would fax all
Fund
the
it.
documents and
Then
then
fund and
fund it
record.
right there, and then get the originals back. Now, the originals are being signed at escrow, being funded, so now we are entrusting that all of this is being sent to the lender after
After
they've
the-
given their money, when in the past that's not how it was.
Right, right.
Okay, see, look at what we're learning today. Okay, so it's really has changed the landscape of closing.
Oh, yes, yes. And they told us that. They prepared us for that when before TRID came out.
Well,
that it
TRID was
going to be
postponed 3 months.
3 months, yes.
And even then, we were still, we've got people who are still going, "Shh." Real estate agents are the worst for change. I'm sorry.
Yes.
And it's nothing, it's just the fact. I'm amazed at people who aren't even on texting.
But I think they made TRID a little bit more
I think they made it bigger than it really was.
available to escrow title agents, where back in 2010 when they changed the HUD, it was like boom, and it was changed, and people were screaming and yelling, and no, you can't do that, you can't put it there, you can't do this. Where I think TRID, there was a lot more classes that was offered, there was a lot more
And I saw attorneys-
availability to the real estate.
I've seen attorneys involved more in this as well.
Yes, yes.
Because I think with this TRID, I think one of the things that we're going to see is you see the billboard for the short sell your house. I think the next billboard's going to be, hey, you just closed. Hey, buyer, come in and get a free review of your documents. And they're going to find out who explained that HUD
And I think
settlement.
that's a great idea. I mean, it really is.
And I will have I have an attorney coming on in March that we're going to be talking about this, because, often agents forget that they're not licensed attorneys, and that the new settlement statement has things on there written in such a way that they're forcing
Them to,
that.
to
So,
explain them.
so what I've been told, and what, because we are a non-attorney closing state, unlike Georgia. Georgia, you go back and close, and it's with an attorney. New
Yes.
York, you close with an
Yes.
attorney.
Everyone
Everybody
sits
has
at
an
a table.
attorney. Everybody sits down. Yep. Everybody.
Passes checks across the table.
Yep,
And here's
okay.
your keys.
Exactly. But here we're a non-attorney. I think this is one of the ways in which they're forcing us to get attorneys involved in closings.
Well, that's what they want. They want, especially like California, they want it to be attorney states now.
And one of the amazing things, because I do get a lot of calls, especially since I opened my own office, from title. Hey, Lynaae, who's your title company of choice? I see you have no loyalty to any one office. You're all over the board. And I'm going to say, I'm proud to say I am all over the board, but a lot of it has to do, as a listing agent, I do not direct escrow. And by directing escrow here in Nevada, we're directing title.
Right.
Okay? Unlike California, their two are separated.
Correct.
And I knew that because I've done a closing over there, and I was just amazed, overwhelmed. I mean, talk about the paperwork, woo, just to do a purchase. And it was just a really simple cash purchase. And I was like, I'm like, oh my God, what if it had been a lender involved?
Yeah.
Oh, anyway, so what I'm talking about here is that, one of the things that we're seeing is this change. And I foresee that we're going to see that billboard that says, hey, you just did your purchase, you're the buyer, come in and see us. And you as an office can actually pull up an agent like myself and say, blah, 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 I see where all your closings are. And that the same company that called me, I made that statement. He goes, oh, yeah, well, I've got an agent here, and he's done every one of his closings with us. And I said, wow, isn't the CFPB going to like that one?
Right.
They're going to be hot after that because it's obvious at that point that this agent has an allegiance or a loyalty to a title escrow company. And in fact, when they say it's seller's choice, it's really not seller's choice, because I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think the public understands title insurance.
No, I agree with you completely.
Okay.
And
so
I
when-
think it's more, I think personally that it should be more the buyer's choice, because in the end, when they get that title policy, that's their home, that's their title policy. And if there is issues, they got to take care of it.
And we're going to pick it up on our last segment. We're going to talk a little bit about the responsibility of the agent to the buyer with the policies, how to explain it, what is the ramifications, if they're eligible to get funds back, etc. So Real Estate Know-How with Lynaae. Our guest today is Harmony Title. Carrie St. Jacques is our guest, and I just really appreciate you being here. I love it when I'm talking to someone who is in the realm of understanding. I like the fact that I have been in title personally, and so I feel like I'm talking to a colleague just as much as I am talking to someone who's in my industry. So we'll be right back after this break. And good morning and welcome back to Real Estate Know-How with Lynaae. I'm Lynaae Forbes with Forbes Realty Group, broker owner, and today in the studio with us is a guest of Harmony Title, Carrie St. Jacques, and I want to welcome you. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
My pleasure.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about what we call TRID, and I've told you, TRID. Leave it to the government to give us an acronym for an acronym. What does this acronym stand for? It's the Truth in Lending and then / RESPA and Integrated Disclosure. So right now we're going to take a part of that and we're going to talk about RESPA. Okay, RESPA talks about, we've got RESPA violations. What is a RESPA violation? When you as a buyer go out and purchase a property and the agent has put in the agent-to-agent remarks that seller is paying for title and seller is choosing title. That is a major no-no. And the reason I say that, because in 1974, RESPA made it very clear, whoever's left with the policy gets to choose the policy. You buy a car, you pick your title, your insurance, car insurance. You buy a house, and your lender says you're required to have a home property insurance. You pick the insurance company. Often, though, the very big thing that we are missing is the title and title insurance. And I've always said this, well, I don't understand. If the seller's paying that and they think they're then entitled to pick the title insurance company, well, they're also paying, as a buying agent, they're paying my commission. So does that mean they get to choose the buyer's agent? And I'm going to pause. No. Okay, so we've got two things in play here. Who's left with the policy, and it doesn't make any difference who's paying for it. So really, when we go looking at, we pull agents' stats, and title and escrow companies can do this. You've done it. Mm-hmm. And like I said, someone called me the other day and said, but Lynaae, you have no loyalty. Really, my loyalty doesn't belong to a title company or an escrow company. My loyalty belongs to my buyer. Mm-hmm. It's my responsibility to educate my buyer. So what if you are what you see a RESPA violation? What is your comeback? Well, according to what I've read, if we close and we can see it in the record, the residential purchase agreement that your buying agent put together, and they listed who the title and escrow person was going to be. And then you get the counter document that says, well, seller counters that we want this title company and this escrow company. You now have a clear violation. Now, do you want to risk losing that house to another purchaser because you're not willing to go with that title company and take that risk? I always encourage my buyers to say, don't do that. And here's why. We have two things we can do. We can either get an attorney to write a letter at the closing, and that seller / listing agent, listing agent. Okay. Now is probably going to have to pay that escrow, the entire seller's policy and the lender's policy of title, because if they don't, that buyer actually has the right to come back and sue for 3 times the amount, whatever that is. And most policies, let's just talk about a really easy number, $1,000. Now, are you willing to take and risk $3,000 to have your choice of escrow? Then you see it, I bet.
Oh, yeah. We see it all the time.
And title companies can't have title companies can't direct a listing agent not to do that.
No. No.
So you guys are out of it, even though it's because of the written agreement.
Right.
Okay.
We have to go per the written agreement on everything.
And see, the way I look at it, it's a violation if I don't inform my buyer that there's been a RESPA violation. I'm at fault. They could actually come back to me if I didn't bring it to their attention and say, did you know that by not having the choice of title insurance, that now you can go back and sue for 3 times that amount? If I didn't inform them, then they can come back and sue me. I did find that out. So as a buying agent, I'm actually more at risk for the violation of that listing agent.
Correct.
If I didn't inform my buyer.
Right.
So do you think I'm doing the right thing?
Yes, I do. And, we had it, and people will say to us, well, Fannie and Freddie always chose escrow and title. Well, they did, but if you read in their contracts, they put the buyer can choose, but then they're going to be responsible for paying all the costs. If they go with us and who we choose, then we're going to pay all the costs. And that's how they got around that. And it's true. It saved the buyer a lot of money. So they were allowed
to at least go out and price it.
But they disclosed it in their agreement.
Right, and and they did always added an addendum to our agreements, and they were pretty lengthy, especially with the title portion of it. And that's again where you should have probably had an attorney look at it, not a real estate agent, because we're not, we're not supposed to be analyzing and going through that because we didn't write that document.
Right.
The one we're allowed to explain is the one that's been pre-prepared for us by Galvar, Greater Las Vegas Real Estate Association. They allow us to fill in the blanks, and I'm a real stickler on that. If that blanks are not done now, because I am a broker owner and I carry my own E&O insurance, I actually push that back to the agent.
Yes. And say complete.
Well, I'll give them a list of what they have to complete.
Yep.
And the biggest one I see is that they like to put the transaction fee in there. And see, 2011, Galvar removed that totally and provided us a document, which is an invoice. And now we go back to RESPA again, because according to RESPA, any fees has to have an invoice. Okay, so putting it on the purchase and sale agreement is a RESPA violation.
Right.
And I'm constantly now, as a broker, I like it that I can actually say, per my compliance in my E&O, we can't accept your document like this. You've left it blank for this and this and this. So when you get it fixed, send it back to me.
Yes.
And that's what I've been doing now. But as a broker salesperson, when I tried to do that, oh my gosh, I still got no respect from agents. It's like if it didn't come from the broker, doesn't stand.
Right.
But now that it's my insurance policy, and the other thing I signed it is compliance department.
Yes.
Not Lynaae, broker owner. I just like the compliance department that prevents, and compliance / E&O. Okay, so I love it that I see that you support that. And so as a buying agent, my job then is to learn about insurance so that I can help my client, my buying agent. And you guys are underwritten by 2 policy
Old
people.
Republic. Yes.
Old Republic and then First American.
Right now, I think we're just Old Republic, I believe.
Now, do you have available to you, for example, if someone says, I want to go with First American, but I want to go with you as the escrow company. So you could still bring in a First American policy? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So again, when we're talking about title, we need to know that you can just shop it just like you do Geico, State Farm, Allstate, Farmers Insurance, just like you would do your home insurance and your car insurance. That you need to do the same for your title. So again, I want to thank you for joining us today. Real Estate Know-How with Lynaae Forbes with Forbes Realty Group, owner, broker, and our guest today was Harmony Title, Carrie St. Jacques. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And have a great day, everybody.